Shannon and Justin will come up next. So good morning and welcome to this session titled How to Adapt to and Resist Students' Use of Generative Artificial Intelligence, led by myself, Lauren Cartwright, as well as Dr. Justin Clark and Dr. Shannon Dyer. I think all of us have noticed that AI has announced its presence in our courses in ways that demand our attention. As Mustafa Suleyman, who is the CEO of Microsoft AI, points out, generative AI was released just under 2 years ago, and in that short of a time span, over 1 billion people have used large language models. Ottawa University has amended its policy on academic honesty that is included in all simple syllabi to declare that students presenting not only other humans' work, but also AI's as their own amounts to plagiarism. And you may have elaborated on that in your own course policies. On the other hand, you may be finding ways to not just permit, but to actually encourage students to use AI. So the purpose of this workshop is to share our various attitudes toward AI and our responses to it, even while we recognize that students' use of AI likely is here to stay and will even become more common and more expected. We can still do our jobs, which is primarily to help students learn. Suleyman likens AI to, quote, a new digital species related to the invention of computers about 80 years ago. And he argues that we should view AI as a, quote, digital companion. Still, he implores his audience in a TED Talk that he gave back in April to ask, what are the risks and what are the boundaries that we want to impose? We're hoping everyone will take away from this workshop some answers to those questions. And I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you. One of my favorite parts of these faculty conferences is meeting my colleagues, and we don't do that in person these days, so we don't get those side talks to say, hey, how's your summer? I would love to do that a lot more, but we're going, hearing what you are doing in your classes is something we do too rarely. So this, what we're planning on doing in this panel is to capitalize on that wealth that we have as collaborative teaching colleagues. And we're going to do, after a little bit, we're going to put us into breakout groups and let you have a chance to share how in my discipline and in my classes, and specifically with maybe an assignment, I'm going to adapt to this new reality. I did a lot of prep for this, just in my work that I'm doing anyway, and in my classes, we're all doing prep for AI. And I think the predominant understanding on AI, and specifically large language models, is we don't know. We don't know where this is going. We don't know how fast it's going. We don't know how far it's going. And it may go too far just a little, and we realize it a little too late. So, but we do know that it's adapt or we're in real trouble, because my understanding of AI last year was, oh, it kind of samples bits from the web. And that may have been true in some of the earliest ChatGPTs. That is not true anymore. It is, in fact, a predictor. And so when it speaks, it is coming up with new material. So it's never been more important that our students develop their unique voice. And so our positive approach is your uniqueness is valuable, and AI is not. It's not a uniqueness that is from anything other than crowdsourced kind of predictions. So, but it has gone beyond our detectability. And that most major universities have, from the provost office down, has said, you know, we're no longer going to be, since April of this year, able to use some of these predictor sources. So we may still try to do that, but I don't think, but don't lose all hope. I think Justin's got some good messages to bring us back as we end. But for now, what we'd like to do is break out into sessions. and give you a chance to talk specifically about some of your assignments and think about that. And when we do that, we'll give you an example. Let Justin, myself, and Lauren share some examples of what we're talking about and how we've adapted, and we're going to be adapting all fall courses. So we'll start with that, then put you into small 2-3 sessions, 2-3 individuals. And then when you come back, we're going to put your responses, what you came up with individually, in the chat. So the video of this is not going to be as important as the document chat, because it's going to have all of that, plus the websites that we found most valuable in preparing for this. We'll put that in while you're in your breakouts. We'll put our websites we found valuable that hopefully might be helpful for you as well as you prepare and think about the future. So you want to start, Justin, you want to lead us out with some of, you can do both a positive, how I want to use AI, and you can do, here's how I'm going to change so they can't use AI as easily. So we've got several different options there, and we'll give you some examples of either of those or both.
Great. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. So from my course, I'm using an example. I teach basic issues in philosophy, and I have, within the past year, of course, as I'm sure most people have, caught students using AI, and I'm going to change the way I make assignments in light of that. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I used to always, it's mostly an essay-based course, I used to always give take-home essays with a 1-week deadline and 2 kind of very wide open prompts on the subjects that we've been covering. And students got to choose between those 2 prompts. And what I'm going to try doing this fall is instead, I'm going to make those essays be in class, and those are going to be in Blue Books, which I know I remember from my college days. And instead of giving 2 prompts, I'm going to give them 8 specific prompts a week ahead. And then on the day of the essay, I'm going to choose which prompt that they answer, and they're not going to be allowed to have any notes or any technology when they answer these. So I just put it in the chat. That's my old, and this is the new. This is what I'm changing it to. And one of the questions here is, well, couldn't somebody enter all 8 of those essays into AI and then kind of memorize the answers to those 8 questions? The answer to that is like, yes, they could, right? But from my perspective, that's actually kind of close to learning the material. So if they do that, I'm not that upset with it. And no, like what this strategy doesn't make it so that students can't use AI. But what it does is it just kind of mitigates it. It makes a couple changes that make it more difficult to use AI to do most of their work. So that's my AI mitigation assessment. And then if a way that I can use AI in a course is one of the things that I was thinking of doing is having students ask an AI to answer a philosophical question. Like, for instance, if we're in a section on free will, have AI give me what's the best argument for the existence of freedom of the will. And then I say, you need to critique the AI's answer using this specific author that we have read from our textbook, right? And so that's a way to engage AI, but make sure they are the ones doing the engagement with our source and material. So those are my 2 examples. And now I'll hand it over to my 2 colleagues here.
Lauren, if you want to move to yours.
Sure. So I noticed a lot of use of AI in my Introduction to Literature and Film course in the spring. And I saw that AI could obviously find writing on the films and the stories that I was assigning, and it would give specific ideas in response to my questions about certain themes, but it wouldn't really give detailed examples from the stories and the films. So like in the movie The Fly, it would talk about how the character Ronnie becomes pregnant with the fly man's child and has to decide what she's going to do. But it wouldn't mention that there's a scene in which the fly, played by Jeff Goldblum, crashes through the window of the hospital to stop her. So that detail I noticed, okay, that's the sort of detail that AI is not going to include. So I need to require students to include those details. So just really prompting them in assignments to mention things that they actually saw and they actually read in the story and in the film. And we'll see how it goes. Maybe AI is going to start realizing details from films and stories. But for now, I think that at least gets them to think about examples. Maybe even if they're supporting ideas of AI, they're still having to go into the text in the film and provide an example that makes sense with that idea. So that's my assignment.
So my mitigation or attempt to kind of control the use of AI, I have an interpersonal class where we teach APA writing, and we teach it with a very classical 2-lit reviews and put it together in a unique, creative way that makes them engage. So it's already kind of a slow motion paper with multiple assignments. The days that I do those multiple assignments, I will be reversing the classroom. And actually, in that class, I'm going to be reversing the classroom, which isn't a perfect solution, but at least gets me kind of started. It's one I'm going to experiment with. Most of you familiar with reversing the classroom, where I put both my explanations, my lectures, any videos I'd use in class, everything but the discussion will be pre-work, and then they will have to have read everything they need to do before they get to class. And then it's much more like when I coached forensics. I'm going to work with them. By the end of the hour, they will have a grade for that assignment, just on those preparatory assignments. They will literally do them in class with me. Whether we need to have a computer lab, I don't know. But we're going to kind of mentor this, see if it works. Some of these assignments are very brief, that you put the base ideas down. And if those are solidified, I think we can kind of work. I may also supply a little bit more of some of the research, even though they will do some original research, because right now it's pretty easy. So it's really challenged me to use AI more. I have been using it myself, and I am, on the exciting side, I am super excited for spring class on managing conflict, because you can give AI very specific details and it can construct an entire case study, 2 pages long. And it can take those details from students' lives, instead of saying, change the names of this, college roommate interaction or something between parents who were divorcing. Take those and put just the facts in, and it will completely reconstruct it, make it completely different. And you can have multiple students putting together facts for a new constructed case study that's beautiful. So our expectations are going to be higher on how long their assignments are, but we're going to use AI to kind of go in. Additionally, I want them to show their work. I wasn't nearly sympathetic enough for accounting when they had to adjust to calculators and they had to show their work. They're going to say, which prompts did I use and why did I select this particular outcome case instead of this one, and what did we go through? So there'll be more self-reflection on the use of ChatGPT, which will by next year will be in 5. And I think they elevate 5 to PhD level answers. And this one is currently at college level answers. What we experienced last year was high school or less. So it's about to get real, folks. So anyway, share something. Just the sharing of what you're doing is going to be valuable. So we're excited to do this exercise, and we'll break you into groups and let you share something you think might mitigate, and some way you might see AI as helpful in your classroom as well.
So I'm going to break you into groups. This is the first time I've done this. So just going to see how this is. Okay, so we're trying to get you into
that. I do want to give you one expectation. When you come back, be prepared to write about your assignment a little bit. So if you get done a little early before you come back, go ahead and start typing, or type as you're talking. But encourage each other with ideas, share what you're doing, and again, these attitudes and responses that you've had with AI as well.
Excuse me, can I ask one question, I think, before we get there? Do we have a policy regarding the use of generative AI?
We do, yeah. Our current policy is you can't turn it in as your own work. We don't say you can't use it in a class if it's a part of the assignment, and to acknowledge it. But of course, there are ways to cite AI, and you would need to do that if you were doing an
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think this is just going to assign you all to groups of 2 to 3 participants. Justin, it might put you into a group because I don't have you as a co-host. So I think you can probably escape the group if you want to.
And
Okay.
our length of time is, sorry, I didn't grab that note real fast. We're going to be in for 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes to talk and come up with ideas and then come back, and then we'll put all those things in, and then maybe let a few processing that which you can. Anyone in your group has a question, you can come back to the main room, of course.
Okay, this is strange. It's not letting me
Okay, let me see if
determine. It sort of stopped telling me how many people are in the group. So
okay, so mostly I just kind of go by how many people. 31 divided by 3, so we do 10 groups.
10 groups, got it. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Just create it.
Froze, so I'm not getting anything.
Oh, I think it's sending you now.
Awesome. Just peeking through those breakout rooms real quick. Justin, you were in room 3, but you're not in there, so.
It just asked me if I wanted to join, and I said, not now.
Right. That's
Yes.
And that's
Okay.
why I'm still here. So if
Terry,
I
welcome.
think
Would you like to join a group and talk about some of the AI?
Sure, I was connected, and for whatever reason, I lost connection, and it took me a few minutes to get back, so I apologize.
No worries, we can move you right there. So I will assign you to room 3 because I know Justin's not in there.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I need to cut and paste in some things in chat, and we need to put our examples in the chat.
Okay. And they're just got 15 minutes. It's going to close automatically, right? That's how it.
Yeah,
I think I set it to do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
And we can always do it too. We can just go in and just say click close groups.
okay.
We can broadcast to those groups if we want to say, hey, 5 minutes more
Oh yeah. Okay.
about what you want to write, and then we can leave it at that. So since I'm not gonna put our links in until you and I put our summaries in. I wasn't like Justin, I didn't prepare mine. So I'm just gonna kind of toss them in there since they're also gonna be in the recording. Have we paused recording?
I did not.
And do that while we're just typing.
Yeah, let's pause
Okay.
it because I want to say some real mean things about Peter Jacobson.
Okay. Pause recording.
Close now, they get 60 seconds to join us again.
Okay. I'll close now.
And then you can start the recording. That's absolutely
Yeah. It's going again.
great. Give everybody a chance to get back, and then Justin will let you have the floor.
You know how many we started with? We got 11, 12 now.
31, I think, and I can
31,
check the
okay.
breakout rooms. I think there's 1 or 2 breakout rooms still trying to finish up that everyone is in them.
It looks like everyone's back. I think we're at 31 now. As we said, we'd love it if every individual would paste into the chat box here their assignment, either an AI mitigation strategy or an assignment that uses AI in a productive way. We're going to make this chat into a document that will be available for everybody afterwards. And we'd like to have a discussion for the next 8 minutes or so, where we talk about maybe some things that came up in those sessions. And we'd love it if the first discussions that we could have were people responding to other people's assignments. So for instance, when Shannon was talking about making sure students show their work, I realized that is something that I should be adding to my assignment in basic issues in philosophy, not just do it in a blue book, but on that first page of your blue book, I want you to write an outline of the way your essay is going to go, and throw your thesis on there too, so it shows that you're following your plan. I'm going to give everybody a couple, maybe one more minute to try to please post this in the chat. And then we'd love to hear from you regarding what you found interesting about somebody else's proposal.
You can continue to write those even after people are discussing.
Well, if nobody's going to jump in and all at the same time, I will say that one thing that I've noticed in a couple of these responses that is great is their focus on students incorporating some personal experience or opinions. If you've dealt with AI, you know that when you ask them a question or ask it a question, it'll often, say, this is the pro, this is the con, or whatever. It won't take a stand on things. And obviously AIs are poor at
There is a way to bypass that, though.
yeah, you can ask them to.
You can ask them to, and honestly, I found that AI kind of grows with you too. If you use to say like you have your own account, it starts writing like you, it starts sounding like you, and it makes them more for and really, if the prompt is good, where the student goes in and actually asks them the question, make it clear. I think it does. AI does a pretty decent job. One that will fool us, where we just like, especially in the discussions, right? Something simple that just goes right through the concepts, bring their own personal experiences. They refine a little bit, and you're done. So it's getting better, getting stronger, unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So again, we're looking for strategies that mitigate, not a foolproof strategy, because I haven't found one. I'm not sure that there is one. I don't think there is one, but strategies that help us not make the perfect the enemy of the good here.
I really like the idea that Kevin Hickman shared to track what students have done in a Google Doc, because that really emphasizes like the process that the students have followed. And usually in a writing class, you're trying to emphasize process, not product. So, and that's what students miss when they use AI, or they usually do. But even if they're using AI a little bit, if they could just somehow work it into a process that they're following, then they're still learning about writing and becoming a better writer themselves. So I think that's a great idea.
I think one of the things that came out that we were speaking about, we had one of us who has a typical class size of 2 to 5, and one of us, my typical class size is 40 to 80. And so some of these techniques, there's no way that I can do that to 80 different essays or 60 different essays, or I've done it with 40. But it's challenging. And so my perspective on it has been more to try to teach them that this is a tool. You can use it, but you better be using it well. And at the end of the day, it's the message that you're creating from this. It's not that different than typing it into Google and trying to copy and paste what Google spits out. So use it if you need to, but you better be able to take that information, synthesize it, and create something that's effective, professional, reasonable, factual. Sometimes things are just made up because they would fit the situation, or maybe in the future this would be realistic. But I also think subject matter makes a difference. If you're in the sciences like I am, there's hard facts. And if you were writing a research paper, cool, you got to find those resources. And if you find those resources using ChatGPT, great. But then you've got to read it, understand it, apply it, and answer follow-up questions about it.
Something that was mentioned in our group that I think is important to keep in mind, and I think it's because, Becca was in our group, is the help that AI can offer to students who have disabilities. And I think that's something that we need to consider as we continue to either deny it or incorporate it, into the classroom. That say one thing, and she mentioned in her comment, and I did also in mine, sorry to be redundant, but note taking. So, if you have a student who has ADHD who maybe focuses on maybe the wrong things when they're note taking, or that they're writing too much, AI can be used to make their points that were written into their notes more concise. So there are advantages, to using AI for particular populations of disability, but once again, we just need to learn to use it correctly and ethically.
All right, well, we're at 11:40. I want to make sure we end on time. So there's no way we can cover all the examples that everyone gave. And if I'm going through there's some excellent examples in there. I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far, Peter talked about doing oral exams in class for a portion of a grade, which is a really interesting idea too. But to wrap up, I wanted to talk a little bit about maybe this idea that the sky might not be falling here, which is that, AI is a moving target right now. And in philosophy, we've been talking about for AI a long time. We've been talking about AI for a long time. And one of the things we always, that always came up was the Turing test. Well, when is AI going to pass the Turing test? When can we say that AI is going to think or whatever? And it turns out that these questions really might not matter. We're not really worried about the Turing test. It turns out that AI can pass the take-home essay test, and that seems to be a big problem, right? And so AI detection software that we've been trying to utilize, it's at best unreliable. Depending on which software we use, it's going to be either very strict and not count things as AI that are AI, or very broad, and then it will count things as AI that are not AI. I might have said that the same way both times, but and so relying on kind of AI to detect AI, that doesn't seem like a great strategy going forward either. And when we look at where AI might be headed, it's something like, well, it's looking like AI might be able to respond in the manner of a really, really smart stranger who will do assignments for free on demand, right? That's kind of and that students can have in their pocket. And when we think about it that way, I think it's helpful to realize, oh, I've actually been trying to stop students from having other people do their work for a long time. It's not just AI that's forced me to do that. I have been trying to make sure that students are the ones writing their own paper. And there are things that we can do that make it marginally more difficult for students to have other people do their work. And I think that's the kind of approach that makes sense in this case as well. What steps can we take to make sure that students do the work that we want them to do and that it's them doing it? And I think there's a lot of great examples in the queue of small tweaks that we can make just to make the cost of using AI a little bit more high. And the second thing I want to talk about really briefly is this difference between measurement and judgment and the role that expertise plays in that. And we are all subject matter experts. That's the credentials that we have. We are experts in our subjects. And I think it's very easy to design assignments that have really objective measures of what we want. And the reason we do that is because measurement is objective. When we say we want 8 sources, then we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 here, that's great. Judgment is a little bit more difficult when we say that, I want good sources rather than bad sources. But judgment is exactly why we need experts. Anybody can measure. That's the point of measurement, is that it is objective. And we as experts ought to be leaning into our ability to judge. And this might require that the university stands behind our judgments as experts about what is good and what is bad. But I think that we as experts need to make assignments that are better evaluated by us as judges rather than as mere measurers. That's going to do two. One, it's going to lean into the fact that that way what we're doing isn't something that an AI could do on our end either, right? AIs can count sources very easy. They're less apt to group sources as good sources or bad sources, right? And the other thing that this does is it makes students exercise their judgment, which in a world where AI is becoming ubiquitous, that is the kind of skill that we want students to develop. When an AI can do measurement and output things that tick all the boxes very easily, what we want is students to be able to exercise their judgment. And that's what we're experts at. That's what we've all done to get to the point now where we are instructors. So I think that that's the positive message, is that we can lean on our expertise and not just our ability to objectively measure things. And I guess it's 11:46. I went a minute over. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll go with trust yourself. Thank you, Justin. And thank you all for coming. I think that's it. We can end recording.
Okay, I will end recording and try to grab it before it disappears.
All right, thank
All
you all.
right. All right. Well, I think it went pretty well. So thank you.
Thank you. There was a bit of a ramble at the end there, but
Oh, that was good.
all right.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.